Thank you. When I looked through the brief biographical sketches of the women who are being inducted tonight, I was stunned, I was amazed, and I was in awe. And so then I began to read some of the biographical information that's available from the women who have already been inducted. And again, I stand in awe and almost disbelief. And then I began to realize that you could write a history of the city of Anchorage and the state of Alaska from just those biographies alone. That's how incredible. And so I thank the Alaska Women's Hall of Fame, and I must say that I'm deeply humbled to be asked to stand among them, and I appreciate that. As I was thinking about tonight, I began to think, I came to Alaska 40 years ago this year, and when I came here, several things surprised me. I mean, I was from LA, okay? And one of the things was, everywhere it seemed I went, I kept encountering these incredible women. They had energy, they had ideas, they had purpose, and they were committed to doing something in public service. There were things they wanted to see happen, and they would spend the time and the energy and the money to make those things happen. And I remember things like, for example, I can remember the battle to get Jane elected to the Assembly. I remember the struggle with Anne as she tried to become a police officer in the city of Anchorage. And Joan Hurst. I have to tell you that to an entire generation of women in the 1970s, Joan Hurst taught us what after-school childcare meant and how to define it and make it happen for women who were working outside of the home. And of course, Jewel Jones. Jewel was committed and passionate about creating senior centers for the city of Anchorage. And we, of course, thought we'd never use them, but we saw her energy and her commitment, and we wanted to try to make that happen. Because, see, that was what was happening. That all of these women, they came, they saw what it was that they thought could be a part of the quality of life here in Anchorage and in Alaska. Not just for themselves, but for everybody, for all of the people who lived here. Recently, I was involved with a project with the First Alaskans Institute. And it was funded by the Kellogg Foundation, and we wound it up last fall. It was a project that was to take the subject of racial equality in Alaska and take it out into the communities and into the villages for discussion and dialogue. And there were basically two groups. They formed one group that they called the visionaries. They called them visionaries, we called ourselves the old folks. Because the other group were the hosts. And they were the young men and women who were going to go out in, and did go out into the communities and the villages of Alaska and facilitate and establish and have dialogue about racial equity in Alaska. Well, we wound this up and we were all out at the Heritage Center last fall. And a bunch of us were sitting around a table and kind of talking about what had happened and what hadn't happened and what we thought was good and what we thought might be a little better. And somebody started talking, well, you know, the problem with this is the problem we've always had, which is we're talking to the choir. I mean, we're just talking to each other. And we get it. I mean, we know what racial equity is in Alaska and where it is and where it ain't. So, that's the problem. And somebody over on this side of the table said, well, we might be talking to the choir, but we're singing in the same key. And somebody at the end of the table said, yeah, and we sing in the key of we. And we got so excited. We loved this idea. So we're there, we're doing the chants and the dances to the choir in the key of we. And I was thinking about that this afternoon because it seems to me that the role of women in Anchorage and in Alaska has been many times, frustratingly, the choir talking to the choir, never really sure that the voice was being heard. But the most amazing part of all of it is that the choir sang together. Even when they were working on projects of their own and they were doing things that they wanted to accomplish for themselves, they were really doing it for everyone in the community. And that was that coming together, that singing in the key of we, that I think has made not only the quality of life in this community, the quality of life in the state, but the history of both incredibly different and incredibly important. So I just want to close with to leave you with these thoughts. Number one, thank you for being a part of the choir. And secondly, thank you for singing in the key of we. And finally, thank you for letting me be a part of that choir.